Want to suck your blood in space.
There's no girl astronauts or vampires.
Women will be astronauts in the future, sweetie.
So, why do you lie to the girl?
No, let's start this thing! Welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you are armed like a stormtrooper with a flamethrower with the information you need to be able to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on whatever device you want. My name is Tom Merritt.
And my name is Hype Man McClanahan, because I couldn't be more hype for all of the awesome online original entertainment coming our way. We've got Netflix originals starring Bill Burr that we just saw in the opening, and just around the corner on the 20th, we have both, a.k.a. Jessica Jones and A Man in a High Castle coming out. Tom, it's the golden age. It's the best time ever to be a cord cutter. I'm Brian Broshwood.
I totally agree with you, Brian. And I was about to make it clear that you're Brian Brushwood. We are going to have a jam-packed Cordkillers episode today. So let's not waste any time and get right to the primary target. Product may not contain jam. So Moffat-Nathanson report came out last week showing that U.S. pay TV, and by pay TV, we're always coming up with new names for this stuff, but they're talking about your cable company, your satellite company, the old traditional way of delivering content to your television, lost 357,000 subscribers in Q3. Now, that's twice what they lost in the same quarter last year. So year over year, it's a big increase. It's also a decrease from what they lost in Q2, when they lost 605,000 subscribers, but that could be a seasonal thing. Dish lost 175,000 subscribers when you don't count Sling TV. But if you count Sling TV, which you can get on your Roku and your desktop, et cetera, then they didn't lose as much because Sling added 155,000 subscribers. So they now have a total of 395,000 estimated subscribers on Sling TV. Still a small number, Brian, when you compare it to Hulu with its 10 million or Netflix with its 42 million.
Certainly. But keep in mind, I mean, this is our perennial story, right? This is the story we cover every 20 minutes here on Cordkillers, going way back to the frame rate days when the original stories were, growth is slowing down for cable.
Well, it's the housing market, Brian.
Well, I mean, sure it was back then. But then, they're starting to shed a few subscribers.
Well, it's the economic downturn. It's just this is going to turn around, Brian.
Yeah. Well, but then they kept going down faster and faster, and
it's wizards, Brian.
Now,
demonic wizards.
Keep in mind that there's a million different ways to spin these numbers, and one of the most recent ones, I think earlier this year, we had a story that said that one particular cable company showed an increase in subscribers. Therefore, what cord-cutting movement? Is this a case where we'll continuously be able to spin the numbers any way we feel like every 20 minutes, or are we seeing, is this the final nail in the coffin of anyone suggesting that that this trend isn't a real thing?
Well, that's the thing, right? For a while it was, the subscriber losses are only in the traditional cable operators, not the satellite companies. Well, now we're seeing them with the satellite companies. It's still only 350,000 subscribers. When you keep in mind there's 80 to 100 million households in the United States, it is a slow, small loss. So it's really hard. It's really hard to spin these numbers either way. It's not a disaster. It's not a cord-cutting march to victory. It's just a slow erosion of the current model.
Well, I think the important thing is for you to zoom out and look at the 30-year pictures. For 30 years, you saw unprecedented geometric growth in cable television. Pretty much anyone who could be a cable provider was blowing up. Satellite providers blowing up. And now we are seeing the brakes halt. We're seeing zero growth. We're seeing negative growth. This is the top of the roller coaster, people. As best I could tell, we are about to start seeing increasingly fast drops moving forward. And the mere fact, again, people can only be subscribed to everything for so long before they decide what to cut. And when they decide what to cut, guarantee it, they ain't going to cut their Netflix, they ain't going to cut their Hulu, they ain't going to cut their Amazon Prime. They're going to cut that giant $90 beast on the other side of the house.
If I may be permitted a metaphor here,
indeed.
In addition to your excellent roller coaster metaphor, this is a house built on sand, and we're seeing a little more sand crumbling every quarter. It's like, there's a little sand crumbling. We should do something about that. What we're waiting for is that push That thing where the ground just gives way and this whole house comes tumbling down the side.
Well,
now, apologies to anyone who's ever lived in a situation where that happened. But that's what it feels like. Like the ground is eroding away, and it's not huge, but we're waiting for that push. And
now
I don't know what that push is going to be. It's obviously not Sling TV. It's not PlayStation View, but it's coming.
You know what? I wonder if the push is the next economic downturn. Well, where all of a sudden everyone has to tighten their belts, and they're going to choose where they want to tighten their belts. And by the numbers, I think is a very compelling argument to cut out cable just to save for the savings.
You don't really save money if you want to keep your programming, though. I think that's the issue. Although you do get control over what you spend it on.
Right.
So I don't know. My gut tells me no. It's not an economic downturn. It's a technology. But they're both viable options there. I think somebody's going to come with a service, and everybody seems to think it's going to be Apple. I'm still very doubtful about that. But it's going to be a service that says, hey, we if you pair us up with Netflix and Hulu, boom, everything you want.
If I can sully your amazing analogy, I think it's 100% right. This idea of a house that's built on a sand and you're watching the sand erode. Unfortunately, what people are hoping is that the sand collapses underneath and then the house goes tumbling down. It will, but it'll get tumbled down right into the safety and arms of the cable companies who are now your internet provider, where they will gently set the house down and say, look, we saved the day. All your favorite programming available through our internet service.
Here are your family photos, literally,
yes,
on the internet,
exactly.
In our storage. That is true that a lot of the internet service providers are also cable companies, and a lot of internet service providers like Verizon and AT&T would love to be more successful cable companies, and all of them are trying to figure out how to hold on to that. But the one thing that I think is absolutely inevitable is your television is going to be delivered over the internet. Within 10 years, that's just going to be the norm.
Yeah. Now, do you think we're going to see them actually shut down services for over the air or for cable or I guess, traditional analog or digital cable?
Well, that'll take forever. Like the actual shutting down of the cable in your wall. Right now, they're trying to, in their own interest, they can't get people to move to digital fast enough. There's all those people who still like, I just want to plug the cable into my television, don't want a box. Some companies are able to make that transition faster than others. But even if they can't make that transition right now, obviously getting rid of the people who are like, no, I've got cable and I've got my cable box and I'm going to stick with it. Put it this way. If people are still subscribing to dial-up on AOL, we're still going to have cable for a while.
Are people really subscribing to dial-up on AOL?
Millions.
What? No. Say it's not true. Wow.
No. But it will become a dying part of the P&L that just goes down every month.
Yeah. I tell you what's not a dying part. I tell you what will not go down any months ever, especially not this month.
P&L.
Is our fantastic supporters over at patreon.com/Cordkillers, where we have 2,000 patrons, almost $2,000 per episode. Hit refresh on that. Let's take a look. What do we got? We're now up to, oh man, my joke isn't working. Because if you refresh
it was definitely the other number. There it is.
Oh, wait. Now it says 1,966 patrons at $1,629.
That's profit.
We just lost $300 per episode, Tom. What just happened?
Well, Brian, when a dollar and an expense love each other very much, one of them disappears. No, Patreon is experimenting with showing the public how much money a Patreon entity like Cordkillers will take home versus how much is being given. So the idea is you'll see not how much total is pledged, but how much the total pledged amount is minus credit card fees, minus Patreon's cut, minus even an estimate of declined credit cards, so that you're getting a better idea of like, oh, this is how much money goes to the actual show versus how much money is in the pool of all the different people who take a cut of it.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is much, much closer to the actual amounts that we've been taking home. So that, I don't know if that makes a big difference to you. I'll tell you what I'm really proud of is that number of patrons just shy of 2,000. Let's get back over 2,000. How about that? We don't really care about how much you guys pledge, but if there are 34 of you guys out there who've been thinking about taking the plunge, donate anything you can. If it's a quarter an episode, we will take that quarter, because you add up a lot of quarters and they form like a peso, and enough pesos, you get a lira, and after enough liras, you get 5 kroners.
Right. And then people say, wait, euros took over all those currencies years ago. That's not worth anything. And then you say, well, actually, collectively, I could take it to a collector and get it a lot. And then you do that, and then you convert it, and then you give it to us on patreon.com/Cordkillers. If you get any value out of the show at all, do it.
Yeah, please do, because it would be great to get those numbers back to where they used to be, and this time for reals.
Signals intelligence might not happen if you don't.
Oh.
So we've got 2 main topics here that are kind of related in signals intelligence. One is whether Hulu's going to bring on a new owner, and the other is what streaming services are having to do to keep getting network shows, like in Hulu's case, bring on a new owner, baby. Hulu is reportedly in talks with Time Warner. Now, this is always confusing. See, we're not talking about Time Warner Cable. We're talking about Time Warner that owns HBO and the Turner Networks and TBS. And the idea would be to bring Time Warner on as a 25% owner of Hulu alongside equal stakes from Fox, ABC, and NBC. It's actually Disney and Comcast, but those are the networks driving Hulu programming right now. They own it in sort of equal shares, and they would reduce their shares to bring on Time Warner. Hulu is apparently currently valued at about $5 billion. Now, Peter Kafka from Recode says the discussions haven't gone very far. And he points out that one of the issues is licensing shows to Hulu is starting to be seen as undermining the current product. For instance, 21st Century Fox CEO James Murdoch, remember, this is a company that owns a third of Hulu right now, says, look, I think our commitment to Hulu is self-evident. We've invested a lot in it. We continue to license to it where it makes the most sense for our creative partners and us to do so. But also we want to grow our app distribution as well. And I think we're seeking to license rights to distributors of all kinds if it's on the right terms.
So what does this mean? Does this mean that we're about to see an avalanche of everybody licensing their content to everybody else, and so that maybe it doesn't matter what app you're using, you're able to access all of the latest television? Does this mean that Hulu is going to fight to kind of be that one solution, while meanwhile its own owners are undercutting it by refusing to license some content to it? I mean, this is a delightfully muddied pastiche of a collage of a jigsaw of an enigma.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And what James Murdoch very wisely is trying to do is signal, we're not just going to keep selling everything to Hulu the way we have. Something's going to change. But shareholders, don't freak out. We want to do it in a way that makes us more money. And and the subtext is we haven't figured out what that is yet. The positive idea is what you just said, like, hey, you know what? We'll license it to Hulu and to Netflix and to Crackle and to all kinds of places. You know, we'll share the wealth, distribute it around. The negative way would be, oh, no, we're going to license it only to TV everywhere so that you have to have a cable package in order to authenticate and watch any Fox stuff on any of our apps. I don't think they'll go that far either, but definitely the arrangement we've seen is going to go through a shakeup. You remember Fox was the one who shook things up with Hulu way back in the day when they said, well, we're going to delay shows until they are 28 days later, unless you're paying for Hulu. And that caused a big uproar, but over time that ended up just going away and not being part of the deal anymore.
That's the crazy part. I can't decide if what we see from Hulu are the rapidly changing actions of a schizophrenic person, or if we're seeing an awesome, Web 2.0 pivoting that is svelte and able to try a bunch of things and go with whatever sticks.
Well, yeah, the networks have tried to sell this thing twice. So the idea is there that they would rather not have it so that they could just negotiate with it and decide cleanly not to help it out if they didn't want to. So obviously sometimes they don't want to, but it's proved to be a force of nature that they can't extract themselves out of, because they can't sell it for enough to make it worth it because they see the value in it. And they also can't cut their programming off of it because that is also the value in it. And they're obviously getting enough back from that. But it is a weird thing to look at Hulu and say, oh, shoot, I don't even have to have a cable subscription and I get all of these broadcast programs the next day from two of the three major networks.
Yeah, I got to tell you, man, if Time Warner were to join that mix and all of a sudden you're looking at content from HBO, NBC, Fox, that's and CBS.
Well,
and
HBO less so. HBO is probably just going to be an add-on because that's what Hulu does with Showtime, right?
Right.
But CBS, TNT, Spike, I think, is maybe part of the Turner Network, CNN. I mean, there's some interesting things that could show up there.
I mean, does that, let's say all of this goes through, and this is wild speculation on our parts, does that make ABC look like a stubborn outlier by not participating? Wait.
You mean CBS?
Sorry, CBS. Yes, because
Yeah.
we know CBS has their initiative that they're pushing with the Star Trek stuff.
Yeah, I mean, CBS basically is like, we would like to run our own Hulu, so that's what we'll do, and that's what they have done, and we'll see if that's successful or not. And it is I think sometimes Fox, ABC, and NBC look jealously at CBS and say, "Oh, I wish we'd done that instead of Hulu," but they're kind of stuck there. The other thing they want to get is more cross promo. Anybody who's watched Hulu knows when you start a show, you get that little, hey, here's a person from that show, and don't forget it airs Thursdays at 7 p.m. on ABC. They don't get that on Netflix, but they're starting to get something close. How to Get Away with Murder now has a 4-second glamour shot of Viola Davis, star of the show, and the ABC logo before you play an episode on Netflix. It's something that Netflix has resisted. They also get their ABC logo on the icon in the menu as well. And apparently FX has been able to get a similar deal for the logos on the icons in the menu. And I think that is something Netflix is going to have to loosen up on as the networks start to negotiate harder for these show rights to say you got to help drive people to our existing product more.
Yeah, no, it's been one of those things where it's like they've gone out of their way to scrub all of those logos off of like Sons of Anarchy. It doesn't say FX is, oh, there it is right there. Yeah, look at that. ABC's How to Get Away with Murder taking up the whole screen before the thing starts. Yeah, no, I do you think this means the beginning of the end? Is this the nose of the camel under the tent, where it's like from here we're just going to see more and more branded logos being part of the agreements with Netflix?
Yeah, I think so. I think Netflix is going to have to give on these because the networks are really going to start playing hardball with them. And this really is an easy thing for them to do, especially the logo on the little chiclets that show up on the menu. I know a lot of people, in fact, somebody on Twitter said, I don't really care. That's old fashioned. Why do I care if it's on ABC or not? We've moved past that. And that's why ABC wants to put that in front of you, is so that you don't forget that it came from ABC, whatever that means. That may not mean you go watch ABC broadcast, but it may mean you start to have a positive association because you love this show. And you're like, oh yeah, ABC does really good shows. Oh, that show's from ABC. Maybe I'll try that out. They want to force that association that some people have forgotten as they've started to associate shows with Netflix. And I think that's smart of the networks to do.
Yep, I agree, but also I think that it just tells me how wise and ahead of the curve Netflix was by asking for something that seemed very small. In the early days, as they were setting up their programming rights, for them to say like, oh, and of course we'll scrub off your logos at the beginning and end. That's no big deal, right? And then, back when nobody knew what the value of that was, they're like, sure. And then Netflix was, in their early days, for a whole decade plus, able to really look like this magical wonderland as a playground where all your favorite content lives. And you don't know where it comes from or what. Like you did have, with the exception being all of the Stars content, even during the heady early days, they still always put the Stars logo at the beginning of that content.
Well, and when you watch Big Bang Theory on TBS, you don't see a CBS logo.
That's true.
You just see Big Bang Theory because it's syndicated, and that was the argument Netflix made: is this is essentially a syndication right. Like you wouldn't make anyone else you're syndicating to do that. Why would you make us do that? This is a recognition that the playing ground has changed and the rules must change as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's gear up because we got some gear to talk about.
Gear on up and gear down. Lame gear is coming to your town.
With the gear. So there's a piece of gear up on Kickstarter called Cast by Genie. Because they're French, Genii. The Kickstarter runs through January 9th, 2016. This is a device that allows you to share your video across the internet and watch it with other people. And hold on, yes, I know. You already know of a service that does this. There are millions of them. But this one has a little bit of a different spin because it's a hub a smartphone app, a Wi-Fi camera, and an HDMI dongle. So it uses a sort of a wireless casting, and then it takes any video that you can get. You got to authenticate Netflix, Hulu, maybe your cable provider for like a Fox app or something like that. But then you can send what's accessible on the internet to another cast user, up to 6 at a time, limited to your normal circle of family and acquaintances. You can't just rent out your list. That's against the terms of service. And then you can chat along with them. If they have a cast set up, they'll have a camera, you'll have a camera, you can talk to each other, you can see each other's reactions, you could play games and do this. It's $299 for a box, $399 for a hub, and they expect to ship in September 2016. They call it a wireless home video system and console that smartifies all of your home devices. Digital.
Smeggy.
When done online. So thanks to the folks who've pointed out similar services. The reason I think this is worth bringing up when maybe others aren't is there's a lot of services that do this online through their central server. They're going to get crashed. They're going to get smashed by rebroadcast rights because they are taking the video in and then they are sending it back out. The way Cast is working is it's sending it over the internet from one cast to another. And so it works. They are hoping that they are working along the principle of a Slingbox, which is, hey, I can cast a Slingbox signal to myself. Nothing wrong with that. So they're trying to stretch that and say, well, as long as I'm just giving it to my family, my normal circle of acquaintances, it's not actually a rebroadcast.
So I can't dispute that there's a heavy appeal of this to me. There's a number of shows that I've watched and want to rewatch because I want to be there virtually with somebody else as they're doing it. I rewatched with Bob and David with Justin in the room, and it was totally different watching a comedy show with the same room as someone. My brother, for most of our adult life has been in a different city than me, and we make it a habit all the time where it's like I'll load up a video, I'll listen to his video, and I'll sync it up to where I'll listen to his audio and his reaction, alongside it. So I understand the value of it. Having multiple people, 3 faces on there, I think it gets a little bit more intrusive. I don't mind it. We work around it when we're showing clips and talking about it on the Night Attack show. I am curious whether or not that's something everybody wants, though. Like, I get it for sports. Sports makes perfect sense, right? Maybe for a few other things, but it's like if it's limited to they all have to have it. I mean, I don't know about that aspect of it. Although I suspect that if you did want to do it, maybe as you watch it, what would be interesting, and this is wild speculation, but what if there was something like this where as you watched it, you could talk and it would record a transcript of your comments. And so whenever your friends watched, they had a little avatar of you with little pop-ups saying what you said at various moments that sync up. I don't know. My guess is this is a very, very niche use for it. I think it's legit. I don't think they're fudging on the rights issue. The fact that they're limiting it to 6 people, I think they're clear, right?
Well, it's limiting to 6 people and 6 people who have to have the cast. And that's what separates it from a lot of these online things where suddenly anybody just logs into the site gets it. It slows down the opportunity to misuse it because you have to know somebody who has this $300 thing, which is also the problem with it. You have to know somebody who owns this $300 thing. They did get a CES Innovation Award for 2016. They're an honoree. That's not impossible to get, but you do have to be more than just a fly-by-night company to get that. So this is a legitimate company that's able to at least show the CEA, like, we have a business plan, we're a real product, et cetera. I think if this did catch on, that they would run into a number of lawsuits, and they would probably be happy to do that if they got that popular. I don't know if it'll get there.
That's one of those weird things where it's like the very idea of this being a big enough problem to attract a lawsuit only comes after it's so popular that it's a game changer, like a Napster or Kazaa or a BitTorrent.
Yeah.
In which case they're in a fundamentally different position to work with the content owners to come to a solution.
Now, like I said, please, write us if you want. I'll never tell you not to write us, but you don't need to tell us that there is a startup out there that does a similar idea, because yes, there are more than dozens of them. The fact that this one got approved by the CEA, the fact that it's got an interesting hardware setup that's wireless, I think made this interesting to me because it's gear and not just a web service. But none of those others have taken off either. And I think that also might be bad news for
I mean,
cast.
it is wireless, but is it digital?
Digital.
Yeah? Is it digital, yeah?
You know, it is digital.
What?
My podcast, Pretend I'm Dumb About Star Wars.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear about the latest. This is our new segment called Pretend Brian is Dumb About Tom's podcast, Pretend I'm Dumb About Star Wars.
It's the fan podcast called Pretend Brian's Dumb About Pretend I'm Dumb About Star Wars with
Yeah.
Tom Aaron.
All right, so talk me through it.
So if you go to tommerritt.com and look for PIDASW, Pretend I'm Dumb About Star Wars, in the navigation, you can find all of the posts. So far, I have done 2 episodes. And the idea is that each week leading up to the premiere of Star Wars The Force Awakens, I will watch the prequels that means episodes 1 through 6, and pretend as if I know nothing about the series. Now, I do know lots about the series. I'm not an expert, but I'm trying to approach it with fresh eyes, to put myself in the mind of like, okay, if I'm somebody who didn't know anything about it, what would I think of this story? And it definitely has changed my my view of it, because certain things that are winks to the fans of the original trilogy just are lost. They don't necessarily apply, and sometimes they are confusing, and most times they're not. But I look at the story and say, okay, does the story make sense? Is this fun to watch? Is it action oriented? And some things that would annoy me about the prequels as a fan don't annoy me at all when I'm looking at it with those eyes. And wow, in the latest episode 2, Attack of the Clones, that story made less sense than I thought.
Wow.
Trying to make sense of it without any prior knowledge other than watching episode 1.
Well, I mean, it didn't make that much sense having seen all the other episodes. It's like there is a secret people making clone army.
There's something
that's
about
bad,
the idea of
but we
knowing
want them.
the Emperor is involved that made me forget that, wow, hold on. So the Emperor ordered this other guy to get a clone army, but then let the Republic just have it? How does that make sense?
Yeah,
Why would I ever do that?
Well, right. And so the Republic, like all these Jedis are like, oh, a clone army. This is very naughty of whoever did it. We'll take all of them.
Let's take
Thanks.
That's ours.
What?
No, that is the gist of what I do in Pretend I'm Dumb About Star Wars. So there are 2 episodes up. This week I will watch Revenge of the Sith and put up a 3rd episode. And like I said, each week, new episode leading up till finally I finish the limited run series with episode 7, Force Awakens.
Dude, that is wonderful. I am so very excited that I'm immediately going to put on my Kevlar cap and hit the front lines.
U.S. District Judge Rosemary Collier ruled last week that Film On is not a cable system and therefore cannot get statutory licenses. What's interesting about that is Collier's ruling contradicts a July Los Angeles federal judge's opinion in a different circuit, the Ninth Circuit. Both rulings are likely to be appealed by whichever side lost and will likely lead to being thrust upon the Supreme Court. One never knows if the Supreme Court will agree to hear them or not.
So Alki David is the guy who did this, and he's done a bunch of different weird hijinks in the past. This essentially seemed like a lazier, shakier attempt to tackle the same statutes that Aereo was trying to work around?
Well, yeah. I mean, they were
within.
trying to say, hey, we're just like Aereo did. We're a cable company, so give us a statutory license. Where the Supreme Court just said, we don't think you qualify in this very narrow range. The courts now are not using that as a precedent. They're like, well, you're a different kind of business. You operate differently than Aereo. And so the LA judge said, so we think you do qualify as a cable company. And now this new circuit, Rosemary Collier, this new district judge, has said, no, we don't think you qualify, which is, eventually going to force this issue to be looked at in a broader sense.
Man, I wonder if, wouldn't it be amazing if times changed enough that by the time Alki David's admittedly shabbier legal justification, in my opinion, ended up being the precedent creator, because just by that point, attitudes have changed. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden you can come in with PlayStation View, with Sling TV, and start going, hey, these other things exist. Why don't I get to take advantage of this?
Yeah. Oh, man, what a bummer that would be. We could shake our fist at the ghost of Chet Kanoja. He's
Totally.
like, I'm still here, guys.
I mean, he's still alive. But
He's like,
as CEO.
ABC is developing series for its Watch ABC app, the first coming from comedian Liza Schlesinger. Did I say that right? How you can watch the shows is yet to be determined, but will likely involve some kind of cable service authentication. Man, I gotta tell you, if Star Trek ain't gonna make me run out immediately, I'm gonna wait and see with Star Trek. Then any kind of speculative series with anyone is gonna make me wait and see.
The only way this works for us as cord cutting people is if they make them available without authentication on some kind of basis. Maybe they go, oh, you can watch each week's episode for free, but if you want to watch the back episodes, you gotta authenticate, or vice versa. I don't know. Otherwise, I'm not interested at all. And this seems backwards to me to say, hey, people who pay for cable, use an app to watch a show. It's almost teaching them how to cut the cord. Like, hey, did you know you can watch television on these other devices?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure this is really the best approach, but we'll see we don't know what approach they'll take. They may make it available for cord cutters, in which case I could see it making a certain amount of sense of like, let's get some advertising revenue in here for the people who aren't paying for a subscription, and then give a little added bonus for people who are paying for cable.
Fair enough.
NBC's CISO comedy app will be available for a limited free public beta December 3rd. The trial is going to be web only, and there's a limited amount of space available. The service is scheduled to go live for everybody in January for $4 a month.
Man, I have nothing to say about that, so I'm going to move on to Pluto TV. The streaming service with a more familiar traditional channel guide is now available on Apple TV, with plans to come to Roku soon. Pluto is already available on Android TV and Fire TV, and of course your desktop and laptop.
Yeah, the only bummer about these is when they do their apps for consoles like this. I'm going to call it console or set-top box. They don't get to show all the same content that they can show on the web. So, for instance, they have those great Hulu channels on the web. Those don't show up on my Fire TV app because Hulu wants you to watch Hulu when you're on those apps, and they make people pay for Hulu to be able to watch it on set-top boxes. But I still love this idea, and there's still plenty of channels on Pluto that you can watch. So I'm going to download this and try it out.
What other Pluto channels or places would you like to see Pluto? I mean, do they already have a phone app? They already have a phone app, right?
They have. Good question. I don't really care to see them on a phone, though. I mean, It's a guide service, right? It's lean back. So yeah, I wanted to see them on Apple TV and Roku. I guess I might want to see them on a game console.
Yeah, well, and certainly, and Fire TV already, so we're all good.
Sony's PlayStation Vue TV service is now available on the Amazon Fire TV and Fire TV Stick, and support for Chromecast is supposedly coming soon. Service is currently available in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Dallas, San Francisco, and Miami. I will definitely try this because, wow, is it bulky to have to turn on a whole freaking game console just to watch a little television. This is really convenient if you're already in the PlayStation all the time.
Yeah.
But it's kind of annoying to have to go through the whole PlayStation boot up.
Well, and the PlayStation 4 is not the fastest booting console on the planet. You know, you have to sit through and you have to log in and all that stuff.
When I'm playing a PlayStation game, it's awesome because I'm like, oh, right, the PlayStation's already on. Boom, boom, boom. I'm into PlayStation Vue. And by the way, have to say, watched The Walking Dead off the PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vue Cloud DVR yesterday without incident because I followed the rules and waited for it to finish recording and then started playing it. It's really just impossible to watch it while the show is actually recording.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
And finally, Comcast launched its $15 a month stream service that allows subscribers to Comcast Internet to get Internet TV from a dozen mainstream networks and HBO. It includes a cloud-based DVR and some on-demand programming as well. It's launching in the greater Boston area. How big a threat is this, Tom? Is the industry shaking in its own boots as they roll out the industry killer?
Well, obviously, this is just a test, right? Because they're only doing it in Boston. And it's $50 a month. I mean, if I'm reading this right, it says $15 a month with HBO. So that's kind of a no-brainer. If I'm like, oh, should I go to HBO now? No, I have Comcast for internet. I guess I won't. I guess I'll go right to Comcast, $15 for HBO plus ABC, CBS, NBC. But again, it's to me, the smartest thing they did was say there's going to be a cloud DVR because that's one of the biggest holdups for me using Sling TV sometimes is, oh, right, I couldn't get that on demand because AMC doesn't allow on demand right away. They make you wait until the next day. So having a cloud DVR so I have control over that stuff is a pretty good deal.
Speaking of which, the cloud DVR stuff, any kind of built-in stuff, with Sling, we had talked before about some of the content is available offline or on demand. Am I remembering correctly? Were you saying that you were able to watch Star Wars Rebels using that feature, or is it something else?
That works great. You still have to wait until the next day, right? Okay. So if it airs on Wednesday, you're not going to be able to watch it until Thursday night.
But I can't go back and watch the first 4 episodes. For example, really? Okay, because I ended up just getting frustrated. I poked around, for 2 minutes, and the kids are yelling, and so I'm like, screw it. And I just spent $20 to buy the second season on Amazon again.
Oh, no, you go to Disney XD, you choose the on-demand, you get a row of their shows, you scroll all the way, because they're at alphabetical order, to Star Wars Rebels, and then they're all in there.
Yeah, see, in the app, if you go and you just scroll across the channels on the bottom, I got as far as Disney Channel, and I kind of leafed a few each way and didn't see XD.
Disney or Disney XD?
Well, that's just it. Is I saw Disney Channel is not next to Disney XD like I figured, and as I went through, I figured like, oh, they must not have an agreement for Disney XD, because then when I looked at Disney, I even saw on the schedule they had Star Wars Rebels on there, but it wasn't available on demand or whatever. So I ended up just throwing up my hands. And again, I'm sure that if I was smarter and invested more time in there, but in that moment, it's like I got kids yelling and I had to make a call. So I was just like, throw money at the problem, which is probably exactly what Disney wanted me to do in that moment, is to go ahead and buy for content that I'd already paid for windowed rights to watch.
Yeah. So it's right there. Okay. 19 episodes, season 2. There you go.
Yeah.
No, I don't do that to be like, you're stupid, you should have found it. I just wanted to confirm that it's there.
I have no doubt that it's there.
If you don't already know where to look for it, it's definitely the user interface needs work, because it is not obvious.
Well, especially also keep in mind, on the phone it might be different from how I use it on the desktop. The desktop app.
I thought you said you were doing it on the phone.
No, on the desktop is what I do.
No, on the desktop it's actually easier because you can actually see it versus this tiny screen.
All right, well, we'll walk through that later on. Hey, real quick, we need to schedule. I got the new Fire TV, and after a couple of weeks of dealing with it, I have some thoughts. You want to cue that up for next week's Gear Up?
Oh yeah, you want to do a review?
Yeah, let's do
TV?
We'll do a face-off between the Fire TV and the Apple TV.
Sounds wonderful. In the meantime, let's see what's under surveillance. As we mentioned, Netflix original Marvel's a.k.a. Jessica Jones comes to Netflix on November 20th, and The Man in the High Castle arrives on Amazon Prime because we don't have enough things to watch.
Oh, Tom, you got to pick a favorite. There can be only one of these that you're going to watch first. You sound totally decided. It's got to be Man in the High Castle. You going to finish it before you do Jessica Jones, or you just going to watch onesie two? It's okay, and we're done. Tom's not even here anymore. He's in the High Castle.
I'm actually already watching it on November 20th.
Okay, good.
In my mind. I'm very excited about Jessica Jones. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, if I have to pick one, definitely picking Man in the High Castle. And the benefit there is I've already watched 2 of the episodes, so I can just plow right on in. Amazon acquired the rights to the movie The Neon Demon from director Nicola Winding Refn. You might know that director from Drive or Only God Forgives. The movie cast includes Elle Fanning, Keanu Reeves, Christina Hendricks, Jenna Malone, and Abby Lee, coming next summer. And Netflix is investing in monster movie Okja, I think it's Okja, Okja, from director Bong Joon-ho, known for Snowpiercer.
Oh, nice.
Okja's cast includes Tilda Swinton, Jake Gyllenhaal, Paul Dano, Bill Nye, and Kelly MacDonald, coming out in the first half of 2017.
Should point out that's Bill Nye, spelled Nighy, not he of science fame.
Not Bill Nye, the science guy walking down the road with a cigarette.
Oh, dude, well, stuff blows up behind him, it looks like.
So good. So this is now becoming, this is one of the fun things about doing a show like Cordkillers. Over the years, we go from like, oh my God, Netflix is going to make an original show called Lilyhammer. Well, it's in combination with another network, but it's crazy. And then Netflix making its own original show. And now it's like, oh, Netflix has another original movie coming out.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. It's great.
We got some quick hits here. Joel Hodgson trying to kickstart a revival of MST3K. Jason Momoa has signed on to star in a Netflix original series called Frontier, set to premiere next year. Brad Payton, who directed San Andreas, is doing that. And Twilight author Stephanie Meyer is working on a Lionsgate TV show called Rook that will be headed to Hulu.
There's a couple of interesting, I want to say it was a Gizmodo. No, I guess it's this Engadget article that was trying to track down why it was that for so many years they couldn't do a reboot of this because the rights to it was tied up with the producer, the owner, Big Brains. And the question is whether or not this will have Joel Hodgson back or whether it'll be, a new cast of characters. And they were able to track down that the new Mystery Science Theater 3000 will have a different cast of characters and that it is possible because there was some kind of settlement or buyout for the rights bought from Big Brain Studios, and that's why also Rift Tracks is suddenly selling old episodes of MST3K.
Yeah, Jim Mallon was one of the original guys who worked on MST3K and had been holding out for a long time. So they made a deal with Jim Mallon finally to be able to allow this to happen. Joel has not ruled himself out, but he says in the Kickstarter that they definitely want to have new blood. They hope to be able to bring back some of the old folks as well. That's all yet to be decided. But he kind of wants to be like, this is not going to be a reunion show. We're going to have fresh cast for you to look at, which I think is smart.
Yeah, by the way, I believe they've already passed their Kickstarter goal, right?
I am one of the backers.
Oh,
so yeah.
I have no doubt of that. Oh my gosh, look at this. Right now, they are at 1,977,000 of 2 million. I'm sure they'll pass while we are talking right now.
Just go back it in the not too distant future. All right. What have you been watching, Brian Brushwood?
Dude, I went and saw the Peanuts movie
Thank
with
you.
the kids, and
I have that in the movie draft, so thanks.
Oh, good. Yeah, no. Well, I figured you need the bump. I finished watching the entire first season of Star Wars Rebels, started the second season with Penelope. We could talk about that a bit in spoiler in time. Watched all of with Bob and David. Could not stop myself. Did not mean to. Been playing a ton of Fallout 4, and of course, I've been watching new episodes of Fargo, which we'll talk about in spoiler in time. What about you?
Yeah, I watched with Bob and David as well, and we'll talk about it in spoiler in time. But honestly, man, that is the first time that I've started something just with the idea of, just checking it out, see what
just
it's
watch
like.
a little
and
bit.
I just have plowed through. Now, honestly, it's only 4 episodes plus the behind the scenes, but I even ate up the behind the scenes. Like that was a clinic.
Yeah, the behind the scenes.
I highly recommend watching it if you skipped it.
The behind the scenes was magic. I mean, it's like to find out how they to watch a visceral, like I've been in a room with guys just BSing with each other, saying what would be funny ideas, and to watch the transformation of those ideas into the final polished product was just extraordinary. Fantastic stuff.
They did a cool thing in that behind the scenes. Let's talk about the behind the scenes a little bit because that's less spoilery than actually talking about the sketches. They did a cool thing where in the early part of it, they're showing them having bad ideas, or at least ideas that they decided not to use. So they're describing a sketch and it's not the way the sketch came out. And if you've already watched all the sketches, you know that. And then slowly they start to show more good ideas. And then they have one brainstorming session that they captured where they nail it in the brainstorming. And it's just magical to watch them like, oh, and then what he should say is, and that's actually the next line. And they do a great job of editing it to show you like, here's him having the idea. Here it is in execution.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful, and I like the fact that I think it's a very 21st century way to present this stuff because we don't enjoy our content in a vacuum anymore. I mean, when Mr. Show came on, it was the product and that was it. And now everybody's into the ability to watch not just directors commenting on how they did it after the fact, but they want to be there for the genesis of the ideas. And now, I mean, we even had that when we were shooting Hacking the System. We had cameras around as we were writing, developing stuff because there's like, well, are you going to do this? You're like, who knows? We'll know after the fact which of this makes it.
We will not be talking about The Walking Dead this week, but I did enjoy this episode. It's a Daryl episode, and so it's kind of a standalone within the season. Obviously, if you haven't caught up in the season, you shouldn't watch it. But I like their character focus this year. They kind of go back and forth between that. Also been watching Once Upon a Time, Last Man on Earth, Star Wars Rebels as well. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been really good. I've been enjoying that. Obviously, I watched Attack of the Clones. And my wife and I are fans of Ralph the dog from the Muppets.
Sure.
And one of our friends said, well, you should go back to watch the Muppets because Ralph finally showed up. He's in it for like 2 lines. Man,
are you out? Are you done with the Muppets?
I don't know if I'm out. all the way, but I would tell other people who are wondering if they should watch it not to. And I'm gonna really, really hope that the staff shakeup turns it around for season 2.
Man.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's sad. So what have you been on the lookout for, Bryce?
Well, I know that this week everybody's talking about With Bob and David on Netflix, but I wanted to add a little. If you got the momentum and you got another hour. Last week, Netflix added a new special from a comedian, John Mulaney. Do you guys remember John Mulaney?
Not by name. I might recognize his face.
I want to say in 2012 or 2013, he had an amazing comedy special, New in Town. If you know the What's New Pussycat joke story, that's him. And that was from that special. So he's got a new special this year on Netflix called The Comeback Kid. And it really is a fantastic hour set of stand-up comedy. It's one of those it's one of those specials you can watch and think people are going to talk about this for a while, for a little while. I don't want to talk too much about what topics he talks about because that some people really don't like that.
Okay.
When they go into specials blind, but he has a very it's not a very broad sense of humor because it's very pointed and detailed and polished, but it is accessible and relatable to everybody, whether it's about growing up as a child with your parents, relating to how your parents raise you, to living in Chicago or in New York and dealing with people on the street, getting married. It's really a really great hour, and I sometimes with comedy specials, if they're too niche or like pointed or like they're trying to do a weird quirky thing, like there was a special from Chelsea Peretti this past year where they would cut into the special cutaways of like planted people in the audience or like filmed pickups later of like second jokes, like weird characters that were played by her.
I see.
And it was
too meta.
Too much.
Yeah.
It was trying to be. This is a very straightforite.
It feels like a Lily Tomlin gag from the 70s.
Yeah, I could see that. But it's this is I think a fantastic special, and regardless of what you thought of his sitcom, which was not terribly well received, check out The Comeback Kid.
Also, Dark Redeemer points out, I said it was a Daryl episode. It's also an Abraham and Sasha episode as well. If you watched it and you're like, what about that side of it? That existed and was really cool too. And I enjoyed it. So there you go. Let's move on to dispatches. Where are they from?
The front. They're from the front.
Oh, right. Tucker Drake wrote in and said, I got your physical media reason right here. I bought the DVDs for the first season of Rick and Morty to give as a gift to a friend of mine. And when they opened up the case to play one of the discs, The Good Morty religious tract dropped out. It's familiar, if you're familiar with the Chick tracts, it's that kind of style. Digital is great for some things, but it can't replace such a great gag. He even says a couple of friends found out about it and immediately ordered the DVD.
Yeah, no, that I'll tell you, that's the smart thing, right? That's why you pay extra. That's why you buy the thing with the knickknacks. People are spending $100 for a version of Fallout that comes with a little bobblehead or what have you. And I think it's good to acknowledge that. And I think people understand. Yeah, it's a $4 chunk of plastic, but it made me happy. So get off my back.
I feel like the future of that is small drives. Like it will not continue to be DVDs and Blu-rays forever. Eventually, it'll be like a USB thumb drive. Because you don't really care about the medium that you're getting the digital thing on. All you care about is that other stuff in that case.
Yeah, although it's going to be tough. If you're doing physical media, you have to have something that appeals to the aunts and uncles and grandmas. And I don't know that they're going to get past their DVD looking case. I think they're going to go to Walmart. They'll walk past.
Oh, that's going to be the new Walmart thing, right? I just realized it's going to be the USB drive player for people who don't understand.
Exactly.
How to
Yes.
Digital files for sure.
Yep. Hey, we have special audio for this next one. Thank you very much from Steve.
Hey, Tom and Brian, it's Steve from TooMuchScrolling.com. I was listening to your conversation about the possibility of removing a few minutes of commercials from TV shows and increasing the amount of time that we have for content. If we could eke out about 3 to 5 more minutes for content by reducing commercials, we might see a resurgence in those classic TV theme songs. With the reboot of The Greatest American Hero and Mystery Science Theater 3000 on the horizon, can you even imagine those two properties without their theme songs playing in your head? Thanks for all you do for us, the audience, and for inspiring us to create. I'll see you in the future.
That's actually not a bad point. I do feel like, I mean, you watch the A-Team intro, you watch Greatest American Hero, those were luxuriously long theme songs. But keep in mind, those are artifacts of a time when people did not have DVRs and you needed a minute long for people to get over from watching CBS over to ABC or to get home in time and miss the beginning. And that's why the cold open had to be restated or often had nothing to do with what happened after the credits and stuff. I would say the most luxurious opening credits sequences you see nowadays are in number one, like I would say Always Sunny in Philadelphia has one of the longest at all of 20 seconds. And then, but then you have like stuff like Narcos and the HBO stuff, the premium content where they really can take a long time to set the mood. And I don't know, that could be. I would be surprised if we see a lot of that in commercial television because I just don't see, I don't see the networks turning down free money in exchange for a superior introductory sequence.
Well, I don't think that's the question. I mean, our premise here is we have a network saying we are going to cut down commercial inventory. And the question was, well, what are you going to do at that time? I think it's fair to say that some producers may decide to extend that opening sequence a little, but frankly, more of them are probably going to say, well, I have content. I'm going to continue to use that. As long as I'm not as long as I don't have any time constraint, as long as I have a time constraint, I'm going to give it to my content. I think the reason that you see those long, luxurious opens on HBO and Netflix is because they know they can have one show be 47 minutes, one show be 55 minutes, and it doesn't matter. So they're not taking time away from their content when they make those opening sequences.
Yeah. Melissa from Lincoln, Nebraska says, Tom, Brian, and Bryce, I, along with many others, have a bone to pick with the CBS executives and their decision to make the new Star Trek series available only on their app. That bone is their app sucks. In the pioneering days of cord cutting, people tolerated bad UIs, repetitive commercials, and endless buffering, but I feel like the cord cutting community has moved beyond that now. We're being asked to pay more and more, and rightfully so. But beyond that now, but if I'm going to spend $6 a month, I expect something to work at just under the high standards set forth by Netflix. CBS All Access has a long way to go to catch up with this standard. Am I happy they're looking to the web for the future? Yes. Am I happy to pay for their content on the web? Yes, but only if they can provide it in a way that doesn't frustrate me and send me back to Netflix to rewatch Firefly yet again because I simply know it will work.
That's a long way of saying make sure your app works.
Yeah.
Because, you'll piss a lot of people off if you don't get that thing in shape.
Yep.
Fair point. Ben points out that Foxtel is kind of your only choice in Australia. And Foxtel is showing 3 to 4 NBA games a week on their ESPN channel. And Ben, who's in Australia, wants more. So after the Rugby World Cup, go the All Blacks, I canceled my $25 per month sports package and signed up for a $27.90 NBA League Pass. I'm paying more money per month for one sport as opposed to less money for more sports. Madness? No, it's what I want when I want it on whatever freaking device I please. I would much rather pay $25 a month to each sport I'm interested in watching than to pay a cheap $25 for a limited selection.
Yeah. Dude, that's fantastic.
That's what it's always about. And then we got one last one here.
You know what? I'm sorry. I missed that one. I jumped ahead. Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize. I thought that was the last one. Just to add my 2 cents about Plex. He says, I was using Plex to watch the episode of Cordkillers where you discussed the legal issues to which Plex can be put. One aspect of the change is the media landscape is that one aspect of the change in media landscape is that more and more content is not behind DRM. Folks such as yourselves put stuff out and you want your niche to get access to any way possible. Most of what I watch these days is that sort of thing, and Plex is a great service for doing just that. You know these things, I'm sure, but I'm sure most of the media that I want to watch when I want, where is video like you produce, Cordkillers should reference Plex as a tool to achieve that goal. By the way, the Plex Diamond Club.tv channel is excellent.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that. it is excellent at that. And there's lots of that kind of content. And the few, sadly to say, people who only watch un-DRM'd content should totally go use Plex and try it out and see if it works for them. It doesn't change my opinion, and I think probably the fact that majority of people primarily use Plex for other purposes, and then maybe also add these kinds of things like the amazing DiamondClub.tv channel to them.
Yeah, dude. By all means.
And that is it. We want to thank our guest, Ghost, for being with us very quietly.
Yeah, you can thank our guest, Ghost. I'm going to thank our guest, Goats. He's over there bleeding in the corner.
Well, you do what you do to make sure the show goes well, and it worked. You can't argue with results. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv, perhaps on your Plex channel, on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will see you next week.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
Let's go.
it's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.